So I often talk about the story arc of what we're going to talk about today. So I'm going to start off with talking about the governance of the Mojaloop community, but I'm actually hopefully not going to talk too much. And then we're going to get into the technical principles that Mojaloop is based off of, and which again, for a lot of you will be review, but for a lot of people it'll be new. We're going to get into, then we're going to start having debates about how do we actually implement Mojaloops? How do we ensure quality of implementation? How do we ensure that adopters and their implementers are aligned in their expectations? And then ending up with where's the future of the product by the end of the day. So I hope that is clear. So where we're coming from, who we are, how do we get the best out of all of these coming implementations and make sure we're ready for the scale that we see on the horizon, and how do we make sure that the product is ready for the scale that we see on the horizon. So that's where we're going. And we'll start with the who we are. All right, that's better. I don't like standing in podiums. All right, by a show of hands, how many of you have seen or have heard of two entities on this slide? Please, show of hands, at least two. How many of you have never heard of any of the boards and councils on this slide? So I went from 0 to 2, and all of you are at 1. Is that the thing? Come on, at least a few of you have never heard of any of these bodies. Board of directors, hopefully. Technical governing board. Who's never heard of the technical governing board? Good, good. Who's never heard of the change control board? Perfect. Who's never heard of the marketing steering committee? That should be all of you, including the Mojaloop Foundation people, because we don't use it very often. All right. These are the 7 groups that help guide our community. And so the unfortunate thing is most of you don't know what they do. And the governance of the foundation, the formal governance of the community is wrapped up in the board of directors and the technical governing board. The others are organizations that help guide very specific parts of Mojaloop. So I will go through them very briefly in my words, but then I'm going to ask some people from the community who are actually participants in these boards to stand up and say what they do. So if we can have some mics ready around the audience, mostly up front. All right, our board of directors. Board of directors, our chair is Costa Peric. You saw him yesterday give a great speech, but unfortunately he had to leave. Our treasurer is Robert Ron, sorry. And our executive director is Paula Hunter, who you know quite well. We also have 6 members of our board listed here. All this is available online. You can go see what they do. We have currently 2 members of our board in the room with us. I could talk about what they do, but I would love to turn it over to one of our board members, Robert Karanja.
Thank you, Steve. Do you want me to come up? Yeah. Okay. Good morning, everyone. All protocols observed. My name is Robert Karanja, and I'm a member of the Mojaloop board. Have been on the board for about a year now. So Steve had asked me to just take us through a very short exercise on what the board at Mojaloop does. And essentially, the board provides strategic vision, governance, and financial oversight that maintains Mojaloop as a global public good and for financial inclusion. We're a small board, but we do try and get a lot done. And just thinking ahead to 2030, as Costa may have mentioned when he spoke, the IFS team that supports and funds the Mojaloop Foundation will be winding down at the Gates Foundation by 2030. And so one of the big focus areas that we are working on as a board is looking at the sustainability of the foundation and trying to determine new funding sources and also commercial and ecosystem growth. And so that's a big focus for us in 2026 and 2027. And as we look ahead, that's something that we'll be working on a regular basis. So in summary, that's what the board does. Thank you everyone for coming to MojaCom, and we look forward to engaging today fully. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. Miller, anything you'd like to add? All right. One of the points I want to make here is that, and I'm glad that Robert brought that up, if that's really the focus of the board, is on the governance and the sustainability of the foundation. Now, I want you all to know that you are the community. The governance and the sustainability of you as the community is very different from the governance and the sustainability of the foundation. And so the board is responsible for us as the foundation. You as the community have other boards and other bodies for where you, let's say, get more of your governance. And that's what I'd like to get into next, which is the technical governing board. So the technical governing board is actually where, well, I'll let somebody I'll call in from the technical governing board talk about it, of what they do. But the interesting thing about the TGB, and you'll hear, we very rarely say technical governing board, we always say TGB. The difference about the TGB compared to others is that the requirement for being a member of the TGB is that you are a promoter member of the Mojaloop Foundation, which means you pay annual dues. So any organization that starts saying, wow, I'd really like to have a say on this, that's the requirement to become a promoter member. So with that, I would like to ask actually the only member of the TGB who is here, unfortunately, very unusually, Ni, to talk about what he does at the TGB.
Thank you, Steve. My name is Ni. I'm CEO of the Saworks, and I am fortunate to be part of the Technical Governing Board, or the TGB. What we are tasked with in TGB is to oversee the planning and the technical work of the Mojaloop Foundation. The technical teams, executive directors, and the members of the community comes to the board on a monthly meeting to report on the progress, the code releases, and also any other technical direction that is needed by the foundation, right, to make decisions on. The good thing about the TGB is that, as you can see, it is not only the system integrators or the community members from the Mojaloop who are a part of this board. It also has the different perspectives from other technical organizations with their input, and I think that's very useful for us to set the direction. It is chaired by Miller. Thank you, Miller, for always guiding us on all these discussions with the technical teams on the future releases. That privilege is something that is very useful for us to understand where Mojaloop is going. We are currently seeing the current release, but in the TGB, we have the privilege to look at what the future releases are coming, what is the roadmap, what are the issues, and how we can all solve together for the good of the community. There are so many ways to serve in the Mojaloop community, and one of them is to serve on those 7 governance bodies. Now, I will encourage anybody in the community to please, apply for to represent in those community, councils and the entities, so that you can also have a say in how this community is going forward. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much, Ni. Miller, anything to add? All right. And can I get somebody else to handle microphones so that I don't have to be running up and down? Thanks. One thing I said something here of promoter member. I'm trying to see if, do I ask this question as a positive or as a negative? Because see what I get more responses on. How many of you know what it means to be a promoter member of the Mojaloop Foundation? All right, Mojaloop Foundation members and the one promoter member in the room are the only ones who know what it means to be a promoter member. Not long ago, we actually had two types of members of the Mojaloop Foundation. We had promoter members and, I don't remember, sponsor members. We eliminated originally the sponsor members had the eligibility to get on the board of directors. We've eliminated that as a governance changed a few years ago, and now all we have are the promoter members. So in case you were wondering why it's called a promoter member and not just a member, because we used to have two types. So promoter members are very traditional open source membership, open source foundation membership concept. You pay your annual fees, you get some benefits as a contributing member of the Mojaloop Foundation. In this case, primarily, you get get a slot on the TGB. And as Nee was saying, the TGB is the body that drives the high-level direction of the product itself. So any of you whose business depends on Mojaloop, you might want to think about whether or not you want to have a say in the future of that business. And so at some point, you have enough business related to Mojaloop or enough business tied into Mojaloop that it's incredibly important for you to make sure you have a say in the direction that it's going. And so I think a lot of the promoter members have found that that is actually worth it. And so we welcome all of you to go online to mojaloop.io/join, and you can find out all the requirements for what it takes and what are the pricing tiers to become a promoter member of Mojaloop. So that is the TGB. The Design Authority, the DA, and we're not even a third of the way through this. I know it is complicated. All right, the DA is one of the ones that I know the very least about. It is something that is very obscure to me, so I'm looking forward to learning. If I can get a microphone in the back, please. And Paul Baker.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Paul Baker. I work at Infotex Africa, and I've been on the Design Authority for a couple of years, and I'm co-chair along with James. So let me tell you about this important body. It's actually a very active body in the community. So as Mojaloop evolves, it's important that it stays technically sound and my words aren't quite right. Technically sound and architecturally relevant. Okay, so we need to allow the system to evolve. So we have multiple work streams, and at some point we will go to the product council and we will understand what work streams mean. But those are the elements where Mojaloop changes and evolves. And it's possible that a decision or a change in one of the work streams could have a wider implication. So the role of the DA is to have an technical open discussion to try mitigate that risk and to make sure that the solution evolves in a technical way that doesn't build up technical risk. Okay, so what type of changes come to the DA? Effectively changes that change the platform's architecture. So there are a couple of kinds of changes, like a dependency. Choosing a dependency is important, or changes to the core transactional flow. That needs to come to the DA. Sometimes we're introducing new components. It's important to cover those. Or we're introducing a new architectural pattern. So those are the things that need to come to the DA to have that wider technical discussion. But then there are things that don't need to come to the DA. Like bug fixes, refactors, changes to the documentation. It's sort of business as usual. That doesn't come to the DA. And then there's a bit of a middle ground as well. So sometimes if you are beginning a work stream and you are making a technical decision between two different patterns, it's a good idea to involve the DA early on to just get that wider opinion in the community. And also we have some very sharp minds on the DA, and to use that as a forum for bouncing ideas to make sure that you take the best step forward from a technical point of view. So in summary, one other point that is very important is the DA is open, it's public. Anyone in the community has the right to join the DA meeting and raise a topic at the DA meeting. So it is not a private sort of board, anyone can join it. And so in summary, it's there to coordinate the architectural design decisions to make sure that we manage the technical risk while enabling the community and the work streams to move quickly. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Paul. And as you can see, we have a number of members from the community who are on there. Let's see, from members of the community here, Mio, right. Please stand up. Alan, would you please stand up? So we at least can see who else is in here from the room. And Justice. Is Justice here? Okay. You'll see Justice at some point. He's the guy with the really big bushy beard. Thank you guys, you can sit down. These are members of our DA. As you can see, it's appointed by the TGB. So once again, good reason to become a promoter member so that you can appoint somebody to the DA. So as Paul was saying, the DA is really where the quality control of contributions come in. So there's a number of you who are new to open source and you say, wait, how do I know that some random person some random developer doesn't contribute code that's gonna break my national payments infrastructure? That obviously is not gonna happen. We have a lot of controls in place to make sure that that's not gonna happen. But I know that's a fear that a lot of people who don't understand the way governance of open source works might think about. The DA is the main backstop to make sure that that happens. They're the ones who check all of the big changes to make sure that changes that come in don't break the code and don't break the system before it's even considered for a release. And we're gonna talk about updates and releases for about an hour later on today, so I won't get into that. But that's the purpose of the DA. So anyone who is thinking about, okay, I wanna make sure I've got a say in the quality of the core, please join the DA and talk to Paul, talk to James Bush. James, can you raise your hand in the back? Also the other co-chair of the DA. So again, anyone interested in the code quality, but also interested in who wants to know how that works, please contact them and they can tell you how that works. All right, the Change Control Board, the one I understand even less. The Change Control Board focuses on the Mojaloop APIs, whereas the DA is all of the code. The Change Control Board makes sure that no changes happen to the actual Mojaloop APIs that are also going to upset all of the community members. The last thing that all of you want, who are the ones actually, once you've implemented a Mojaloop and you've connected 50 of your financial institutions to it, the cost to you of a change to an API is going to be significant. So the Change Control Board is there to make sure that before any changes to any of the APIs are made, the full, let's say, ramifications of those changes are made or are understood so that we can weigh that against the business requirements that are driving that change. So again, why it is important for all of you who are interested in this to participate in the CCB is that you have dependencies on those APIs. And the idea is you might want to make a change to an API for your business, but it's important that you communicate with the rest of the community about what are going to be the implications for their business of that change. That's where these conversations happen. So without saying more, and within that, we also have a number of APIs. So we have special interest groups, SIGs, that focus on the 5 different main categories of messaging and APIs that we have within the CCB. So with that, I'd like to have Elijah, who runs the participant API SIG. Before that happens, I totally forgot to tell you guys, there's a test at the end of this, so you should be paying attention. Go ahead, Elijah.
Thank you so much, Steve. Yeah, so the change control board is actually very relevant because Mojaloop is an open source software, and the interfaces that the different stakeholders in a switch use are APIs. So the use cases are different. People might have they might have reasons to add something new to the specification to support a use case. So these family of APIs, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The administration, payment initiation, service provision, FSP, IOP, ISO, and participation. These APIs all contribute to the functionality that the switch provides. Now, the reason as to why we have the change control board is when any stakeholder in a switch implementation, or even anyone who is playing around with the switch wants a change, they need to bring it to the CCB, and depending on what specific functionality it is, it might fall in any of these APIs. I'm also going to speak a bit about the structure of each of the the SIGs, but if it's a specific functionality, the SIG would meet if that change request affects their API. They're going to talk about it, determine whether it's relevant for the switch, rather for that API, because a change to the API is going to impact, if there are like 14 live projects, it's very costly, to have an API changing if it's going to affect them directly. So it really needs to be important and needs to be relevant before any change goes in. So each of these special interest groups has a rapporteur and a convener. The convener is usually a Mojaloop Foundation staff member, and then the rapporteur is someone from the community. I am the rapporteur for the participant API special interest group, and what that means is all APIs that are responsible for interacting with participants. By participants, I mean financial institutions, DFSPs, foreign exchange providers, anyone who is participating on a scheme as a third party and not the actual hub operator. They interact with the switch through the participant APIs. All the other APIs have their specific use cases and functionality that they provide for the whole scheme. But the goal of the change control board is to make sure that if there's going to be a change to an API specification, and the Mojaloop specification has a very specific, well-documented set of APIs that are used for each and every aspect of payment processing and clearing. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you so much, Elijah. And so a couple of the names there. Michael Richards, please wave your hand. In the back, Julie, if you could also, and Paul Baker, once again, raise your hand. All right, and then Rydia is not here, and Sam, the convener, is online. You'll hear from him in just a second. So once again, if we were in the world of a proprietary system and we were a vendor, if we wanted to if 3 adopters said, I want to change this API, then we could consider changing that API. Or if we had a different reason to change the API, we could change the API, and you would have no say. In the case of an open source community, you do have a say if an API gets changed, because you can assess what's going to be the impact on you as an adopter, as an SI, as long as you participate in the change control board. So once again, that's what the change control board, making sure that the changes to the APIs are governed by the community, not by some central entity. We're going to keep going, Michael. You'll have a few minutes later. Michael has comments that he'd like to talk to you. If anybody wants to know more about the CCB, please talk to him. All right, we're running low on time. Next one. All right, I've been doing that. All right, the Product Council. So the Product Council, oh, sorry, I forgot one thing. These are elected, I believe, correct? CCB members? Yeah. Product Council is the one council which is the most open. Anybody who wants to join the Product Council can join the product council. It is where we have all of our work streams that decide on new product features, new product functionalities, and those are discussed, the issues are discussed, the specifications are discussed, and that's where all of our product work streams are organized. The last session of today is to talk about the work streams. So I know I was going to call on somebody, but we're running low on time. But we're going to hear much more about the product council at the end of the day from Paul and Julie. So Paul is on the line, Julie is here. They're the ones who run the product council for us. If you have interesting ideas of what you would like to add to the product, you need to go to product council meetings. You need to join work streams. That's where we actually constantly improve the product. The community council. Community council is there to drive contributions from community members and recommend changes in the contribution process. This is where the community learns how to actually contribute more into the product council work streams. And then the product council work streams then put that in front of the DA or the CCB to make sure it's going to get accepted. And that's how we get major contributions. Ploon, if you can wave your hand in the back. Ploon is in the back in the red. Ploon and Nathan, where is Nathan? Back in the green, it's Christmas, are going to be the ones who are revamping the community council over the next couple of months. So look out for some notifications about the revamping and new charter for the community council. That's going to be coming out quite soon to have it much more focused on these two things. All right, and with that, Ploon, do we have the ability to switch to? Okay, so everybody get out your phones, please. Those of you who are not already on your phones while I was talking, it is actually time for the quiz. All right, looks like I see most people. All right, it's still there, so you can still do it. All right, so we're going to go through some scenarios, and you tell me what happens. I'm a DevOps expert, and I've developed a set of scripts to deploy Mojaloop on Oracle Cloud. How can I contribute it to Mojaloop? Do I flag a community member and ask? Do I just do a pull request? Do I raise it to the DA, the design authority? Or do I raise it to the CCB, the Change Control Board? I would love to say there are no right answers, but there are right answers.
Looks like you're wrong, Steve.
What's
I don't like telling people they're wrong, but looks like we're trending in the right direction.
We'll give them about 30 more seconds. Great, so Sam, if you don't mind, because we are running low, I was hoping to have a discussion about these, but we're running low on time. So Sam, would you mind, and I think this one's a bit vague, and so would you mind, so if we go back, can we go back? Okay, Sam, can you tell us, how did we do as a group?
We did fantastic. Yeah, great to see 40, like at least half of the audience there get it right. Raise it to the DA is the right way to go in this case. We're seeing that the others are reducing now, so it looks like everybody is already getting on board with it. It's not that you can ask a community member, but the design authority, as we talked about, is the place where the technical design decisions are steered and discussed. So that would be a great place to start. And then we start with the code contribution, but later on in the stage. Maybe if there is an answer that the majority disagrees with me, we can go into detail, but I think we got this right. So over to you, Steve. Thank you.
Thanks, Sam. So correct answer raised to the DA. Change control board, remember, is only for the APIs. But it's always a decent answer to ask another community member if you don't know the answer. But most likely that community member would say, go talk to the DA. All right, and do a pull request. Too big to do a pull request. Pull request mostly just for some minor bugs. All right, next question, please. Oh, and I just gave it away. All right, I found a bug list in the Mojaloop issues board. Everyone should know where the Mojaloop issues board is, I hope. And I fixed the bug. How should I make this contribution? All right, so do a pull request, raise to the change control board, raise to the design authority, the DA, or raise to the technical governing board. Again, technical governing board, where NE sits, overlooks the big strategy for the technology. The DA is making sure that big changes and contributions are not going to break the code. CCB focuses on the APIs. All right, and Sam, since we're out of time, I'm going to take this one. Yes, if you find a bug request or if you raise an issue at all, if you find the issue, you can contribute that issue. That's a great contribution. Or you can go into the issues board and you can find an issue you know how to fix and fix that bug. Those are just doing a pull request.
Just one comment. I don't know if people are trolling, but CCB and TGB do not get involved on the day-to-day operations or the pull request. So yeah, thanks, Steve.
Yep. And so what happens is when you do a pull request, then there's a code owner for that who will approve your pull request or ask you more questions. If you want to be a code owner, who is one of the people who is actually checking those pull requests, please talk to to James, Michael, Sam, anybody on the DA about how you can become a code owner to help being one of the people who is actually approving code requests. And if you don't know how to do a pull request, talk to the same people. Do not talk to me about how to do a pull request. Next one, please. And I think this will be our last. I have a solution for running Mojaloop with the same or more performance, but with less than half the resource footprint. The correct answer is you come to me because I really want to see that answer. But technically, it needs a change in the underlying ledger technologies. Where should I raise it? Somebody's fast. Whew. A change in the underlying ledger technologies. Does it go to the design authority, the change control board, the technical governing board, or do I do a pull request? All right, so Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you in a second for you to answer my question.
Okay.
So the change control board, again, is only focused on the APIs. A change in the actual structure or definition of the APIs goes to the change control board. So I know it's not that one. However, I have a question. I actually don't know whether it's raised to the design authority or whether this is a big
This is
that goes to the TGB. So Sam, tell us, is it DA or is it TGB?
This is a tricky one. You're right, Steve. So I will say that those who answered DA or TGB will not get a homework, but those who said CCB should get a homework. It's about 20%. So 15 people who voted. Thanks for voting in the first place. But the change control board is responsible for the APIs. But you're right that this discussion might be raised initially at the DA, but it is so fundamental to Mojaloop that the TGP gets involved in matters like this. And that's what we've seen recently with Tiger Beetle. All these questions are actually practical, real, which have happened. So thanks for answering, but that's how it goes. So DA should focus on this 100%, but it is something that the TGP should give a green light on as well.
All right, thank you, Sam. And honestly, I do believe, sorry, we are out of time, Michael. We have a few more that I would love to talk about. We will probably start doing some of these online because this was really interesting. This one, honestly, I hope we have time at the coffee. What's that? Is there any more? We might not have uploaded them. Are there more? No, sorry, we don't have any time, Sam. But this is something we can start doing a little bit more online. Maybe we'll do some online quizzes occasionally. Thank you, everybody, for participating in this. These are real questions that have come up before. If you come up with these, just please let us know. But the main point of this, you guys actually all passed the test. The main point of this was to actually start to think about, just think about, what is the CCB, what is the DA, what is the TGB, and how do they interact? Because the most important thing we've got to do over the next year in order for us to be successful and scale to where we're going is that all of you start contributing, and you need to know how to do that. So thank you so much. And with that, and thank you, Sam, online. I'll pass it over to Ploon.